It's eating your building alive right now while you sleep, while you work. While you do anything other than stand there watching it rust is spreading through your steel like a disease with no cure. And the worst part? Every contractor you call already knows this. They've known it for years. They just never told you, because the moment you find out what I'm about to show you, their $8,000 quote becomes worthless. Their sandblasting truck stays parked, their crew stays home, because a $3 powder does everything they charge a fortune to do. Permanently, in an afternoon, in the snow if you have to. I know how that sounds. I said the same thing when I first heard it. Sounds like the kind of claim some guy makes in a comment section before disappearing forever. But I didn't hear this in a comment section. I found it buried, deliberately buried, in a 1947 military maintenance document written for Quonset hut preservation after World War II. The U.S. Army knew about this compound. They use it on thousands of steel structures across the Pacific. And then somehow, between then and now, the entire construction industry forgot it existed. Or didn't forget, just stopped talking about it. So today we're talking about it. All of it. The chemistry, the process, the results, the truth about what works and what doesn't, and exactly why this information never makes it to guys standing in his yard watching his steel building rot. Let's go. First, you need to understand what rust actually is, because most people get this wrong, and it costs them everything. Rust is not dirt. It's not just surface staining you can scrub off. Rust is iron oxide, a completely different material than the steel it came from. When oxygen and moisture hit bare steel, they trigger an electrochemical reaction that literally converts the iron molecules into a new compound. The steel doesn't get dirty. The steel becomes something else. It transforms, and that transformation doesn't stop at the surface. It keeps going, inward, deeper, every day. The reaction front pushes further into your metal, converting more steel into more rust, expanding in volume, cracking the surface above it, letting in more moisture, accelerating the whole process. This is why painting over rust never works. You're not sealing it. You're trapping moisture underneath and feeding the reaction in the dark where you can't see it. 2 years later, you peel that paint back, and there's twice as much rust as before. The contractor who sold you that paint job knew this, or should have. The honest solution, the one they don't lead with, is to neutralize the oxidation reaction before it goes any further. Stop the chemistry. Convert what's already there into something stable. Then seal it. That's exactly what this powder does. And the reason it only costs $3 is because the active ingredient isn't proprietary, isn't patented, isn't manufactured by one company controlling the supply. It's citric acid, the same compound that makes lemon sour. Available in bulk at any brewing supply store, any health food shop, online by the kilogram for almost nothing. Here's the chemistry in plain English. Citric acid in water solution creates a mild but highly effective chelating agent, meaning it binds to metal ions. When you apply it to rust, the acid attacks the iron oxide molecules, breaks the oxidation bond, and pulls the iron ions out of rust compound. What's left behind is a surface that has been chemically cleaned all the way down to bare reactive metal, which is then immediately available to form a new, stable bond. You follow that with phosphoric acid treatment, which you can buy or mix yourself, and the phosphoric acid reacts with that freshly exposed iron to create iron phosphate. Iron phosphate is dark gray, extremely hard, chemically inert, and completely impervious to further oxidation. The rust cycle stops. Not because you covered it, because you ended the reaction permanently at the molecular level. This is not a coating. This is a chemical conversion. The surface doesn't just look different. It is different. That's the distinction the contractors don't want you making, because once you understand it, you realize that most of what they sell is cosmetic, surface level, temporary. Now, let's talk about your building, specifically Quonset huts, because these structures present a unique rust challenge that most general advice completely ignores. Quonset huts are corrugated steel arches. No flat surfaces, no right angles, nothing but curved metal exposed on every side to weather from every direction. The corrugation itself is actually an engineering problem for rust treatment, because every valley between ridges becomes a channel. Water runs down, collects, sits, The ridges dry out fast. The valleys stay wet for hours. So the rust pattern is always heavier in the valleys. And any treatment you apply has to penetrate those valleys completely, or you're leaving the worst spots untreated. This is why rollers fail on Quonset huts. Rollers ride the ridges. They skip the valleys. You end up with a beautiful treatment on every ridge and untouched rust sitting in every valley right where the moisture concentrates. The correct application method is a stiff bristle brush on a long handle, exactly what you're seeing used here, worked in the direction of the corrugations, so the solution is physically pushed into every valley and allowed to pool there briefly before the brush pulls it back out. Temperature. Everyone asks about this because this video is clearly shot in winter with snow on the ground and steam rising off the metal. Yes, you can apply rust converter in cold weather. The chemistry slows down below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, but it does not stop. What actually happens in cold conditions is that the dwell time increases. You need to leave the solution on the surface longer before it completes the conversion reaction. In warm weather, 15 to 20 minutes of dwell time is typically sufficient. In cold weather, closer to 40 minutes. The steam you're seeing isn't the solution boiling. It's the exothermic reaction generating heat as the acid attacks the rust, and in cold air that heat differential creates visible vapor. It's actually a sign the chemistry is working aggressively. Cold application does require one important adjustment. The solution needs to stay liquid on the surface long enough to complete the reaction. If the surface temperature is below freezing, you have a problem. The water in your solution can begin to freeze before the conversion finishes. The fix is simple. Apply in small sections. Work fast. And if you're dealing with a surface that's genuinely below freezing, heat it with a propane torch for 30 seconds before applying. The metal holds heat long enough for the reaction to complete. Here is the complete process from start to finish. No skipping steps. No shortcuts. This is the method that produces permanent results. Step 1 is mechanical prep. This does not mean sandblasting. It does not mean grinding down to bare metal. It means removing loose, flaking rust, the rust that is so far gone it is physically separated from the steel below it. A wire brush does this. A paint scraper does this. You are not trying to remove the rust that is still bonded to the metal. You want that rust there. The converter needs it. You're removing the material that is so oxidized it can't even hold itself together, because if you apply a converter on top of that, you're just bonding to rust dust, not to metal. Step 2 is surface cleaning. Grease, oil, and paint residue will block the acid from reaching the rust. Wipe the surface down with a degreaser. Simple dish soap works for light contamination, acetone or mineral spirits for anything heavier. Rinse with water and let it flash dry. You don't need the surface bone dry. Slightly damp is actually fine, because your converter solution is water-based anyway. Step 3 is mixing your solution. For citric acid, as a rust remover in prep stage, dissolve 100 grams of citric acid powder in 1 liter of warm water. This is roughly a 10% solution, which is strong enough to be effective but gentle enough not to attack bare metal aggressively. If you're using a commercial phosphoric acid converter as your primary product, follow the dilution instructions on the label. Most are already pre-mixed and ready to apply from the container. Step 4 is application. Work in sections of about 4 square feet at a time. Apply the solution generously with your brush, pushing it into every valley of the corrugation. You're not painting this on, you're flooding the surface and working the solution into contact with every bit of rust. The liquid should be visibly wet on the surface, not just damp. Step 5 is dwell time. Do not touch it. Do not brush it again. Let the chemistry work. Warm weather, 20 minutes minimum. Cold weather, 40 minutes. You'll see the color of the rust begin to change. Heavy orange rust will shift toward dark brown, then toward matte gray-black as the iron phosphate layer forms. That color change is your confirmation that conversion is happening. Step 6 is evaluation. After dwell time, examine the surface. Run your finger across it. Converted surface feels firm, slightly rough, matte, like dark sandpaper. Unconverted rust will still feel soft, crumbly, or orange. Any areas that didn't convert get a second application. Usually this happens in the deepest valley pits where the rust was thickest. Apply again, wait again, check again. Step 7 is neutralization rinse. Once conversion is complete, rinse the surface with clean water to remove any residual acid. This is important. Leftover acid on the surface will continue to etch the metal and can actually start attacking the iron phosphate layer you just created. Rinse thoroughly. Let the surface dry completely before any coating. Step 8 is top coat. This is where most people get confused because they've heard conflicting things. The truth is this: converted iron phosphate is chemically stable and will not rust again on its own, but it is still porous. It will absorb moisture. It will allow oxygen to reach the base metal through those pores over time. For indoor applications or covered structures, the conversion alone is sufficient. The iron phosphate layer will last decades without further treatment. For outdoor applications exposed to rain, UV, and condensation cycles, you need a top coat, not to stop rust. You've already done that, but to seal the porous surface against moisture infiltration. A penetrating oil-based primer, applied within 24 hours of conversion, is ideal. Follow with whatever top coat you prefer: elastomeric roof coating, industrial enamel, or standard exterior paint, all work on properly converted surfaces. Let's talk cost honestly, because the $3 claim deserves a real breakdown. Citric acid powder in bulk. 1 kilogram costs between $3 and $6 depending on your source. 1 kilogram of citric acid makes 10 liters of working solution at 10% concentration. 10 liters of solution covers approximately 200 square feet of corrugated surface, accounting for the extra solution that gets pushed into valleys. A standard Quonset hut in the 20 by 30 foot range has roughly 1,000 square feet of exterior surface. That means you need about 5 kilograms of citric acid for a complete treatment. Total material cost: $15 to $30. If you're using a commercial phosphoric acid converter as your finishing step, and for heavy outdoor rust exposure, this is strongly recommended. Products like Osfo or Rust-Oleum Rust Reformer run about $15 to $25 per gallon, with coverage of roughly 100 to 150 square feet per gallon on corrugated surfaces. Budget another $100 to $150 for a full Quonset treatment. Total out-of-pocket cost for a complete two-stage rust conversion on a standard Quonset hut: $120 to $180. Tools required: a stiff bristle brush on a long handle, a bucket, rubber gloves, safety glasses, and a garden hose. Contractor quote for the same job using sandblasting, rust-inhibiting primer, and industrial top coat for $1,000 on a low end, $12,000 for larger structures with severe rust. And their method doesn't convert the rust. It removes it mechanically and then covers the bare metal with a coating that will eventually fail, at which point they'll be happy to come back and charge you again. Now for the limitations, because anyone who tells you this works on everything forever without any caveats is lying to you, and you deserve better than that. This method does not repair structural damage. If your steel panels have rusted completely through, actual holes, visible perforations, sections where you can poke a finger through, chemistry cannot fix that. Conversion stabilizes surface rust and moderately deep pitting. It cannot fill voids. Panels with through rust need to be replaced or patched before conversion treatment. This method does not work on painted surfaces. The acid cannot reach the rust through intact paint. You need bare rust contact for the conversion to happen. If your structure has old paint over rust, the paint needs to come off first, either with a heat gun, chemical stripper, or mechanical scraping. This method requires maintenance on the top coat, not on conversion. The iron phosphate layer is essentially permanent. The paint or coating you put over it is not. Expect to repaint every 7 to 10 years depending on your climate and sun exposure. The good news is that repainting a properly converted surface is straightforward. You're just maintaining the top coat, not fighting rust underneath it. Cold weather application below 25 degrees Fahrenheit is not recommended even with preheating. The risk of incomplete conversion is too high, and incomplete conversion means active rust underneath a surface that looks treated. Do the job in spring or fall if you're in a severe winter climate, or heat your structure enough to bring the surface temperature above freezing before you start. The reason this information stays buried is not complicated. There's no money in it for the industry. A product that costs $15 and lasts decades doesn't generate service calls repeat business, or contractor revenue. The entire waterproofing and rust treatment industry is built on solutions that work partially, temporarily, and create dependency on professional reapplication. The 1947 military specification documents that first standardized phosphoric acid conversion for steel structures were declassified a decade ago and are publicly available. The chemistry has been known for nearly a century. It's used in the automotive industry for rust treatment before painting. It's used in marine applications for protecting steel boat hulls. Industrial facilities use it routinely on structural steel. The information isn't secret in those industries. It just never made it to the guy with a Quonset hut in his backyard because nobody built a product around it that could be sold at a premium. Now you have it, the complete picture. The chemistry, the process, the materials, the cost, and the honest limitations. Everything you need to walk out to that rusted structure. Treat it correctly and never have that conversation with a contractor again. One afternoon, a brush, a bucket, and $15 worth of powder. Your building doesn't have to keep losing this fight. The rust doesn't win unless you let it wait. Don't let it wait.